Welcome, everyone. This is a very special episode of Enlightened Masculinity. I'm joined with Akash. And Akash, would you pronounce your full name for me? Because I'm always going to, I want to get it. How do you say it?
Yeah, Akash Inti Katakam.
Akash Inti Adakam.
Katakam.
Katakam. Akash Inti Katakam. Akash Inti Katakam. I'll do my homework. Akash Inti Katakam. Anyway, I'm joined with Akash, who's a senior research analyst for biotech and also a registered yoga teacher. I myself am a yoga teacher, PhD. I travel around the world teaching my style and brand called Ninth Limb Yoga. But you all know me. This is my podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is Enlightened Masculinity, and we'll get into what all that means. Akash has really taken the time to organize a meticulous and proper podcast outline. And so we're going to keep it nice and tight and cohesive for you because we know that's how you like it. And I'll hand it over to you, Akash. What's going on with you, brother?
Yes, brother. Awesome to be online, and thank you so much for hosting me today. It's been incredible just to dialogue with you and kind of hear some of your thoughts, especially as a fellow yogi and one who's more experienced. I've just had an incredible morning so far, and looking forward to discussing enlightened masculinity. I guess it's something that's kind of come up for me, particularly throughout yoga classes and kind of being one of the only guys in classes.
Usually,
which, don't get me wrong, I definitely do enjoy. But it's just an interesting place to be, and so this is kind of something that's come up for me, and one of the reasons why I've kind of wanted to pursue the topic a little bit more.
The feminine is not feminine unless it clarifies the masculine. It's a polar opposite, and the tendency as just a human, because men and women are more similar than they are different, because we're both humans. Right? I'm closer to any woman than I am to any other animal or creature or living organism on earth. That's the closest thing to me except a guy. And it's easy as a human to just mirror people and kind of become like them. You know, we adopt their mannerisms and their gestures and their word phrases and their ideas. And when you're surrounded by women, it's easy to become a woman behaviorally. And that's not what women need. They don't need another chick in the crowd. They need something different. And you could say that not. Yeah, there's one species of frog or lizard that has no male gender. The male gender went extinct. It's only females. How do they do it? One female mounts the other female, and the positioning of it triggers in the other female. She self-inseminates. She self-fertilizes, sorry. So she'll self-fertilize herself, but it's required that the female mounts her, which suggests that there was once a male and they did away with it. So it's kind of like if we did, I don't know, genetic engineering and sperm bank storage eventually, and then lost the need for the behavior of a man, then men could go extinct. I'm okay with that because that's so far in the future. That's not going to happen in my lifetime. So what do I care? But what I want more has to do with the evolution of humans. Like, where are we going? Like, if I was going to contribute to something, like, where is it going? And I mean, I look 1 million, 2 million years into the future. I can't go really much farther than that in my mind. And I got 20% battery on my phone. So, you know, I'll hand it over to you. That's kind of, when I first heard Enlightened Masculinity, that was an event that Vince Kelvin and Arash Dibazar put on. And I went there. It was part of a product that I wrote. I wrote a 30-page manuscript about my in-field experiences with Arash Dibazar. It was called Sex Sutras 2. I had Sex Sutras 1 already, so I wrote Sex Sutras 2, which is a 30-page manuscript, took place at Dream Hotel, where I saw him seduce and make very comfortable and make very, very good friends with 2 Swedish women that I didn't know what to even say to them. I tried. It didn't go well. And he came in and with his conversation and understanding of energy and, you know, like what we talk about, his sacred syntax method, I saw magic happen. I saw a feminist, a hardcore feminist, you know, single woman who was making it as a sculpture artist in Los Angeles, California, as a foreigner. So just everything stacked against her. She'd been fighting the world for a long time. Her father relationship, these are things that I extracted by listening to Arash interact with her. And I have the audio recording. So they're part of what's become known as the 9 Laws of Social Dynamics, which is a product that Arash Dibazar came out with. The manuscript ended up not being included, but the audio recordings that I recorded and edited are. And so you'll hear how he asks questions and how he ascertains her life history in a very playful and seductive way. I mean, she loved every moment of it. So that's the art of it, right? And because anybody can ask questions like an interrogator, right?
Hmm.
But can you make it so that they want to give you the answers? They almost like blurt them out because they just want you to know this thing about them. So yeah, she had damaged relationships with men all her life. It was no wonder why she was the way she was, in my understanding. And which is it, guys, this is all just my opinion. So, you know, hate me if you want, or argue with me if you want to try. I'm not going to argue with you because I don't care to. It's my opinion. Like, I'm not trying to falsify myself here, but at the same time, I want success in the world. So I want successful relationships. I want success in money. I want success in, like, basically meaning I want something, that means I want it. And success is, do I get it? Or, you know, maybe I evolve and that want changes or whatever, but I'm never like hanging up throwing in the towel because I can't do it. I can't hang with it, you know? So where was I going with that? Anyway, that was the Enlightened Masculinity event. And I always liked that word phrase, Enlightened Masculinity. It was poetic and solid. And so we were talking, and somehow last week when we did our podcast on the EC2, you know, takeaways, I said the word phrase, and I was like, and then Akash, you were on this rhythm. You're in mentorship with Arash, a $1,000 a month program where you just don't know the value until you, you know, sometimes you don't know how heavy your wet clothes are until you take them off. And you're like, shit, I've been wearing like 20 pounds. You didn't realize. Or how heavy the backpack is, because it's not that heavy at the foot of the mountain. But then as you're walking up the mountain, you take a break and you take it off, and then you like jump up and down. You're like a basketball player.
Yeah.
And when someone talks to you in a way that your mind elevates and it lets go of baggage, and it's not as heavy, it's not so weighed down, your emotions aren't weighing you down, what's that worth? What's it worth to take off half of your emotional load because it was not needed? That's mentorship with Arash Bazar. In a nutshell, I mean, that's not mentorship, but that's like, you know, what I get away from it a lot of times. So I've been talking a long time. That's my take on Enlightened Masculinity. So I'm really curious on your take and kind of where you saw this going, where you'd like it to go, if it could go anywhere.
Yeah, it's interesting. So one of the ways that we came to the title itself, like you mentioned, was actually reviewing some notes from Alpha Buddha. So the actual talk with Vincent Arash, the whole idea being enlightened masculinity, and it's something that's really spoken to me a lot, especially given, I guess, like the Me Too climate and I don't know, hearing a lot of stories about, because I'm surrounded by women like quite a bit, and so kind of hearing about like what's going on with them, and why has there been such a, in a lot of ways, what I feel like an attack on like masculinity in today's day and age.
Sure.
And so in a lot of ways, I've been kind of surveying. Actually, I've got these two notebooks that I've been working with when I go out. So it's man and woman.
Whoa.
And
Nice.
and
Wow.
it's incredible. So on the inside cover, there's a question that says, for women, what do you want men to know about women? And then for men, what do you think women don't know about themselves? And so it's the opposite on each journal. And it's just, I mean, these journals are like filled with stories, and it's a great way for me to interact and really get to know someone on a deeper level very quickly.
Super.
It's incredible in the sense of some of the answers that I've gotten. I've seen everything from kind of women really like divulging, going deep down into their personal relationships and experiences that they've had, both positive and negative, and the opposite. And I think it's just, in a lot of ways, people don't know, men and women don't know how to relate to each other in this day and age. And that's one of the things I really respect so much about Arash and his teachings, is like his teaching how do you relate to each other in a way that's respectful, admirable, and authentic, and really stays true to these things. So I guess the larger point being for enlightened masculinity, and one of the reasons why I want to continue pursuing learning about these topics, is I myself strive to become the best version of masculine that I can, and I want to surround myself with men such as yourself, Rosh, Vince, etc., who are striving along this path and really not only using their masculinity for personal gain, but really to take it to the next level and evolve consciousness and humanity. So it's really interesting in that sense.
Mm-hmm. So where would you want to take this recording or series of recordings? Where would you hope it, what effect would you want it to have on men or women? Or what legacy do you want to leave? Or what effect do you want it on yourself? Or what ideas do you want to cover? Just anything or anything else that,
Yeah,
looking forward 6 to 60 podcasts.
I suppose I want to, one, inspire other men to kind of take this path, versus kind of the conventional view of masculinity, where not it's not thought to continue to elevate in a lot of ways, and it's kind of like once you've quote unquote made it in your life, whether that be like you're making money and you're at a good spot, kind of being stagnant there, it's like, no, that's your signal to continue going forward. So one,
So what's this path? When you say, the first part, what's this path?
I guess the path to continue to evolve versus staying stagnant. So once,
Do you think that might offend some people too? Because I think everyone is trying to evolve in their own way. They think they're evolving. I think most people think that they're growing, they're learning, and probably they are, because time is moving forward. You have to close your eyes and close your ears and close all your senses to not evolve. And even then you'd probably change because you'd be digesting your thoughts. So how is this path different from their path?
Yeah, evolving spiritually, I guess. I personally don't believe many people are spiritual, though they may claim to be. As I've continued to learn more and more about spirituality, I've come to understand that our language doesn't allow us to become spiritual in many ways, because it inhibits us. The way that the current lexicon that we have, or the current dictionary of words that we have, doesn't serve the language of spirituality. And so the more that we talk, it's we're actually not able to communicate in a spiritual way.
That's a really good bullet point for this episode. So I agree. So we'll get to your questions. Definitely raise your hands if you're on. If you guys are watching this via another app or something, then just raise your hand and we'll get to your questions in the order that the hands are raised. I just want to hear Akash the rest of this thought, because that really clarified this path.
Yeah, and I mean, there's different ways to approach this. It could be that we start to develop some type of language and lexicon around how to speak in a more enlightened way, or like that at least gets closer to it, because I really don't believe words have the ability, at least at the current time, to convey these thoughts. So maybe we create a new language or lexicon, at least a few words that may start getting towards this. It may be that we recognize.
I invented a word. I think I invented it at Enlightened Masculinity, and I told Arash I think he liked it, because we have feminism but we don't have masculinism. So this is the masculinism movement. There's a word. Okay, I don't know if that counts, but it's a first attempt. The first 3 attempts don't even count.
No, I completely agree. So it could be that we recognize that this is the communication that we're trying to solve is, or the things that we're trying to present aren't really, it won't work. I'm not sure really where it'll go in terms of, it's an experiment in a lot of ways too, which I'm really excited about, because as coming from a science background, in biology and such, it's always constantly experimenting with things. So and in that way, I'm very curious to kind of see where this goes along with you. So another thing I think we could talk about potentially is definitely like being like a guy in a yoga studio. I think many men don't have an experience of that, and kind of how do you interact with the feminine in a way that's kind of staying true to yourself and our values and beliefs, while at the same time being surrounded by a group of women who may not necessarily subscribe to the ways that we think, because they've been conditioned by society in a particular way. So
okay, I'm at 10%, so I won't be able to go too much longer. When I do cut out, I'll go until the battery dies. When it cuts out, the recording will just end. So I'll just say the ending right now, and then we'll get to yoga people, men in yoga. So the ending here, guys, is every Saturday at noon, right, Akash?
Yes.
Yeah, every Saturday at noon, we're doing this live streaming. It's this link. It's the same link I use for spiritual growth, science of spiritual growth with Yuri Vervashchuk. Weekdays, we do that. And so tune in there. We'll have some links in the description. We'll have some of the talking points if you just want to read those. and we'll have our Instagrams if you want to stay in touch. And so, okay, so that's the ending bit that's kind of happening in the middle because we're going to go until my phone dies, which I'm doing this on the phone because there's a fire alarm and it was going for 40 minutes and, I was waiting it out. It didn't happen. So I came out here to the park. Phone wasn't fully charged yet because I just finished teaching yoga to a bunch of women. And one guy showed up who I invited, and he's a good guy. So,
So Yogi Chris, maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience then teaching yoga to a bunch of women, or being the only, I guess, guy in the studio, or some such thing. It's
well, it's usually about like 80-90% women, and it changes venue to venue, but it's on average. I've taught in like 40 different cities around the U.S. and a couple places internationally, and it's always mostly women. Of course, I mean, when I started yoga, I came from wrestling, so I wrestled at the University of Oklahoma for 4 years, and was very good, but very disillusioned and very unsatisfied in life after that was over. I was finishing an engineering degree that I didn't feel prepared about anything. And so I went for a master's because that's what people do. So I went for a master's in engineering, got a girlfriend, terrible relationship, and got into drugs. And at the end of that, I was heavily using a lot of acid and DMT, which are like psychedelic drugs. And I always considered myself a very smart person and had a good body on the outside, like the silhouette. I had a wrestler's body, even though I had been done for 2 years and had sworn off exercise, so much weight cutting, 20 pounds every week. Just 5 days, I would lose 20 pounds. 2 days, I'd gain 20 pounds. 5 days, I lose 20. Just, 20 weeks every year, I would do that. And so that took a toll psychologically, and it was very masochistic, abusing myself kind of thing, not realizing that's what I was doing. It was, which probably has a lot to do with childhood, like what was my sensory experience of childhood. So moving forward, I got into drugs doing that, and I was very unhappy with my body posture and just my emotions. I knew that I was sick. I didn't know how sick I was because I'm still waking up to my sicknesses, and it's like 8-9 years later. So I sought out yoga. I had tasted it earlier when I was wrestling. A coach brought in a yoga teacher. I didn't like it. I tried it another point. I tried it with my sister, and the yoga teacher, one of them was a girl. There was an apprentice and a teacher. She was the apprentice, and I liked her body. And I was not used to being around women because I was a wrestler and very good, but I wasn't that rock star wrestler. I was that like grit your teeth, straight edge athlete. And so I didn't have much interaction with women. I was a physics major, and then I went to engineering, and I actually chose industrial engineering because I didn't care about school, guys. So what if I was smart? I was pursuing wrestling. And now with my understanding, going deeper into it, I was pursuing wrestling because I wanted women, because I was unhappy. And because that was high school, that was middle school, high school, just frustration after frustration, not knowing how to talk to the ones I wanted. I tried, failed. Guys, as a guy, you got to become okay with rejection. That's life. Life is 99% rejection. And that's just what it is. You're not going to get everything that you want the first time you try, because you don't deserve it if you only try once. Life wants to make sure you try it a whole bunch of times. Nature respects persistence. Nature doesn't respect neediness. Nature doesn't respect coercion, so to speak. I mean, you'll win if you coerce, but there's always somebody bigger that can coerce you. And so coercion is that game. It's just who's bigger and stronger. Nature respects persistence. That's one quality. There's other qualities, but that's a main quality of masculinity. I challenge any female to out-persist me on something I want to do. And if you want to just have a persistence challenge, I want to do that because I'm competitive, because I like that. I like competing. I like winning. I was playing Candyland last night at the pub with my girlfriend and 2 other girls. I wanted to win Candyland. If you know the game of Candyland, it's absurd. It's so random. There's no skill, 0 skill. And I wanted to win, so I challenge anyone to want to persist more than me. That's a masculine quality. So I lost where I was going with that, but getting back to the yoga story. So I fell in love with this girl, which it was the next level up. I'd come from a terrible toxic relationship, guys. Just because she's a yoga teacher doesn't mean she's enlightened. Just because she's a yoga teacher doesn't mean anything. She's a woman. She's a human. She has all the same problems, and just on different levels, because women are different. Like each person is different from another person. So It was like, there were problems there, but she helped me get on to the path of yoga. She was my teacher, so there was that dynamic. I was beta to her in many areas. I was masculine on some areas. And guys, if I could go back and look at it, and if I had just emphasized the parts of our relationship where I was masculine, like I was a very good musician, and she loved to just sit and listen to me play music. If I had just opened up more there, because I was very shy and insecure about it, if I had just pushed that button more, it would have very much counterbalanced how receptive I was to her in her yoga teaching, and when she was telling me how to fast and nutrition and guiding me through juicing cleanses and things like this. I could have totally been beta to her in all those elements if I had just let go, and if I had emphasized the parts where I was leader, where I took her to social venues in, what do you call it, bands, live music, and things that she wasn't so familiar in those areas, or she didn't. If I had emphasized the parts where I was protecting her, or just in the lead physically, so when we turn the corner on the street, that whoever's coming the other direction, they see me before they see her. And if I had just emphasized those parts, I could have totally been beta and learned from her in these other elements. There's nothing wrong with beta. It's just one of us is always better at one role. We're not equal at anything. If we play guitar, I'm better. If we do yoga stretches, somebody's better, more mobile. If we did math, somebody's better. If we speed read and then took a test on what we read, somebody's better. Somebody's always better. Nobody's ever exactly equal. And so in a relationship, it would be much better to fully embody the roles where I am better, and she fully embodies the roles where she is better. And if we both do that, then our relationship is as good as possible. But if out of principle, I'm just trying to do this role and she's trying to do that role, and we're not actually better at these roles, then we've just weakened our relationship for the sake of some outside principle. Someone else is governing our relationship. And guys, I'm better at leading and she's better at nurturing. And I'm better at aggression and she's better at being second place, because I don't handle second place very well. I'm very, very bad at handling second place. Second place to me is work harder to get first place. And so I don't want to be that way in a relationship, because then I'm competing with the person I'm supposed to be on the same team with. She is better at being second place in the dynamics with me. I'm sure there's other dynamics out there. I'm only seeing the limited reality of what I want in my reality. So I'm totally in that echo chamber, which is why I have 1,000 videos on YouTube, and I welcome comments, and I do live streams with lots of people. And if you want to join our live stream, send a message. Totally join us. I want to hear you out, because I'm sure you got some great ideas, and I'd love to inquire into them. I love growing the audience. So yeah, so without fast forward really, really far, that's what got me into yoga. So I was not experienced with women being in engineering. I was not experienced with wrestling. I was not experienced sitting at home doing drugs or selling drugs or whatever. Like that, women would come around and there was just a lot of, that was bad interact. That was bad references for what women are. And, but that's what I was coding my mind with. So that's where I came to Arash Bazaar with. And, so fast forward, just always around women in yoga classes, not really knowing how to interact, like, I just didn't have any game. I didn't have game outside of yoga, no game inside of yoga. One thing that I'm proud of is, though, I never really lost my integrity. Like, I always knew if it felt right or if it didn't feel right. And I never went with it didn't feel right for the sake of getting her. And so that's a good thing. The bad side is I never got her. But there was something in me that knew that I'm doing something wrong here. Like that when it came to like supplicating or being that yes man. And I'm sure there's elements of like supplication and being a yes man just in my nature or in how I behave. But I never went so far into it where you see some guys, they're just overly soft. Like I wouldn't feel safe them protecting me from like a cockroach or like a bumblebee or a fucking squirrel. They can protect shit. What is that? That's a liability. That's not a man. That's a liability. You got to protect him. And I was never that because of my upbringing and my macho dad and all of these things. So then when I finally got into teaching, of course, it's mostly women. Around women, I went through complications, of course, because women like me. They would hit on me. They would flirt with me. I wasn't used to the female attention, and I definitely wasn't used to the female touch, admiration, affection, so many females wanting to be with me. I made mistakes teaching yoga along that path. Not many mistakes, many less than what some of my ex-girlfriends will say, but that's what ex-girlfriends do, so I'm okay with that. My current girlfriend is the greatest girl in the world, So I took all of that to get to this, and that's fine. And it's surprising how many women after yoga workshops, guys, I've taught probably maybe like 2,000 women around the country. And it's amazing how many of them come up to me after class and just unload like relationship problems, like looking for advice. And it's a touchy subject because you should, like, people will give you contradicting beliefs. And if you ask too many people for advice, you're going to paralyze yourself. You need to find someone that you want their advice. My girlfriend found me. If she listened to somebody else's relationship advice, it would not be mine. And then we would have conflict. Now, if she wants to go and study somebody and bring it back to me, then you'll go through that phase in your relationship where she wants to teach you something. And so, you know, that's another thing for another podcast. So finding my masculinity was very much knowing they're opposite. They're different from me. I'm not trying to be like them. I was around so many women that it just, I had to stop taking so personal all of their emotions. And it wasn't emotions directed at me, but I had this inclination to like want to empathize and understand. I'm their teacher. They're paying me. I wanted to help them, but I can't help them by becoming them. Like, totally. I can take on their state of mind for a moment, and that it takes mind training to not fully stick to that. Like, I don't want that state of mind to stick to me. Like, I want a difference, knowing that I'm just an actor playing a role. I'm just going to take on their mindset for a second so I can solve some things, give them the solutions, and then step out of it. And then how much is that worth, kind of thing. So keep me on track. Is that kind of lead us somewhere? Does that give you any insight? Do you think that's valuable to anybody? I'm at 1%. So I'll actually kind of end it there. We'll answer Arslan, if you want to type your question. Do you see, did Arslan type his question? I wonder if I have a portable battery. I can still hear the alarm going off, guys, also. Yeah, I don't know what. Is nothing typed? He raised his hand.